Welcome to Stress-Free IEP. You do not need to do it all alone. With your host, Frances Shefter, Principal of Shefter Law. You can get more details and catch prior episodes at www.shefterlaw.com. The Stress-Free IEP video podcast is also posted on YouTube and LinkedIn, and you can listen to episodes through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now, here's the host of Stress-Free IEP, Frances Shefter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. Today's special guest is Tania Farran, and Tania is an inspiring and experienced professional with a really impressive resume. She's an expert in educational leadership and parenting, and she has over 27 years of experience in education and parenting. And she's also a business owner, talented in public speaking, and manages to balance life professionally and personally. She is passionate about leadership, family, cooking, and self-care. And she has written 8 books. One of the most popular books, which I'm sure most of you have heard about, because I think we've even talked about it on the show, is Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, A Parent's Manual. She's been featured guest on numerous podcasts and audio events, including her own virtual wellness show, which we'll make sure the link is in the show notes. And it can be found on her YouTube channel. And Tania has presented in numerous conferences, including most recently the Informed Conference for Educators and Conference of the Young Years. She hosts weekly rooms on LinkedIn, facilitating conversations about education, parenting, and self-care, which, as you all know, are all passions of mine. That's why we have our show too. And she's active on all forms of social media, which we'll have all those links as well. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Elementary Education from University of Missouri, St. Louis, and a Master's in Administration from Lindenwood University, and a Doctorate of Education from Missouri Baptist University. So Tania, welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit. I mean, I know your intro was very, very informative, but tell us a little bit more about what we didn't say.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Frances, for inviting me here today to be on your show. I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate the really nice intro. I think the one thing that I would just add to it is I always tell everyone when they're like, "What do you do?" I always say I'm an educator. First and foremost, I'm always an educator. I started out as an educator. I am an educator all the way through, no matter what. So I absolutely love being an educator and have always loved my career in education as well.
It's so funny that you say that, because I say all the time, you can take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the classroom out of the teacher.
Right.
And it's the same with me, like that's why I have my show, and that's why I have the YouTube channel. I started off as a teacher and loved those years, but it was time to help kids in a different way. But it's all about teaching, right? And letting
absolutely
know.
It is. It really is.
Yeah, because there's so much out there. I mean, like, as you know, we have degrees in education and stuff, and like have learned so much, but it's difficult. And like, I love the name of your book, because Raising the Well-Adjusted Child. That's what we all want and strive for. And all parents know it's different for every single child, including your own. Even if they have the same disabilities or no disabilities, whatever it is, everything is different. So what can you tell us a little bit about like the highlights of the book?
Yeah, exactly. I agree. A lot of people kind of worry about the title, Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, and they're like, oh, what does that exactly mean? But it's different for every kid. So I'm really glad that you picked up on that. And so inside my book, there's a variety of things. If you look at the cover here, my graphic designer, we wanted to portray that this book goes through all ages. So you can kind of reread each chapter as your child is growing and progressing. But the one piece that's super important is finding what fits for you inside the book. And that's what's, really speaks to a lot of people.
Yeah. And I love that you say that rereading the chapter, because I've reread books many a time, and it's funny because like, I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't get that the first time around. And probably because I wasn't ready to hear it. And when I was ready to hear it, I was able to hear it and absorb what I needed.
Exactly. And inside here, so I also made it a parent's manual because as a principal, I was working with parents, and every week, every couple of days, I was meeting with parents and talking to them about the same things. And so I thought if a parent would just have a book that they could say, oh, discipline, where do I go? Let me look at discipline. Oh, consequences, let me go. Let me look at that. Structure and routines. Oh, here it is. Those were the things that I was helping parents with all of the time. And so I wanted to put it together in a book for them.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's awesome because it's the same thing. Like, and I talk to parents all the time, and I'm thinking like now, oh wait, I need to do videos on that, just about choosing schools.
Yes.
Because like some kids, general education's working great. Some kids need a social emotional class. Some kids might need a non-public. And like every child is different, and what fits for every family is different.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
how kind of address that, like, well, but she wouldn't know my child. Like, does your book, I'm assuming, goes into
So I have a section in here of partnering like with your school and really letting them get to know you. I think that's really important. From being a principal, I wanted parents to come and introduce themselves to me. I wanted to get to know them, their family dynamic, what did they need, how did their child learn, what was the best environment for them. So that was important for me. And so I put that in there about them going up and introducing themselves and getting to know the office staff and the principals and things like that, as well as the teachers. They always seem to know the teachers, but the rest of the teams that can help them. And so I did incorporate that into there and really kind of guiding your child through being a partner and how parents can help support academics at home. So little things that they can do at home to just help support the school. Now, on a different note, aside from my company, Creative Living Ideas, by day, I am a virtual middle school principal. So I've
oh
left the
wow.
brick and mortar setting about 4 years ago, and I transitioned to only a virtual setting. And like you were just talking about, there's a variety of options for kids out there, especially now. And every state is a little bit different. So checking into what state you're in, if you're listening to what options they have for your kids.
Right. Yeah, no, I didn't realize you were still a principal.
Mhm.
How does that, I'm sorry, like, how does that work? I'm just trying to picture how, you know what I mean? Because like you go into the principal's office, you know what, like, how does that
Yeah.
work virtually?
Well, really, it really works well for a lot of kids because, you know, there's not as much discipline being virtual. Our students aren't in the same space with other kids, really close spaces with them. They're not having to be maybe present for a full 8 hours with a teacher. So a lot of disciplinary things that were occurring in schools for kids that aren't able to sustain maybe a full day of school, or they're not able to sustain a certain period of time. All of those things that we create in IEPs can be done at home, for kids. So they automatically get extended time to do an assignment, because their cutoff date might be midnight. Whereas if you're in school, you have 40 minutes to do math.
Right.
So the learning coach, they do have to have a learning coach at home with them, whether it's grandma, aunt, mom, dad, older adult brother, sister, something like that. And they may help them manage that time of when to do certain assignments. It gives kids a lot more breaks in the day.
Yeah.
Sometimes they feel more comfortable being at home,
Right. And I can see how it could
They
work
have
for
their
some.
pets. They have
Yes.
their pets with them. We have lots of pets on camera learning.
Yeah.
Lots of pets are learning with us.
It's so funny
And
you said
so,
that because we
yeah.
were talking about it at an IEP meeting, and one of the tutors was making the comment of the fidgets, and that when she works with them at home, and she said, and some of the fidgets are breathing, and it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just petting the dog
Yeah,
or the cat,
exactly. It
right?
really is. It really, really is.
Yeah.
And so it's really important. And so I talk about, and going back to the book in that sense, when I talk about going back into each section as your child ages and grows, in the back of the book, there's discussion questions. So for example, like, what is the best way for you to communicate with your child, and how often do you hold conversations with them? That's just a reflective piece, right?
Yeah.
Of one chapter. And so each chapter has 6 reflective questions in the back. Can you see how you can go back to a toddler? You
Yep.
communicate very differently to a toddler than an elementary school student, to a middle school student, to a high school student. And the times that you need to make sure that you're touching base with them and communicating with them, and your method of communication changes.
Yeah. No, definitely a lot. And once you think you figure it out, they switch it up on you again, right?
Yes, they do. That's why I'm like, oh, you can go back to this and go, wait a minute, let me look at these questions again. What does our
Right.
routine look like at 2 years old, at 5 years old, at 7, at 10? Because they all change, right?
Yeah,
You know, as they
exactly.
grow.
And I love that you say it's, it's our job as parents to make the changes. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's such a challenge because, I grew up in the era of you did what mom and dad said because mom and dad said it, period.
Right,
Like there
right,
wasn't that option, but that is like
right.
so gone out the window now.
Mhm.
Like it just the kids want to know why. The kids want to know.
Right.
So it's like I know I need to reframe my mindset and how I think about things to find that happy medium that they're still doing what I want them to do, but they
Yeah.
think they have more control.
Yes.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that brings me to something else I wanted to talk to you about. So you brought up my LinkedIn rooms on my audio room. So on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m., I have what's called Parent to Parent, and I pick a topic. The last 2 weeks, the first one was mental health and your child, and how to support your child with their mental health. That was 2 weeks ago. I did read an article about a student who was 10 who took their life, and it just broke my heart. And I felt like we needed to talk about it and what could we do to help these 10-year-old children. And then I also, or any child, any age. And then this past week, we talked about flipping their brain. How can you get your child sort of out of those mindsets sometimes that are negative or, or sad or depressing, or just not motivated. And so we talked about that. So we dig in and we talk about that together. This week, we're going to talk a little bit more about technology in summertime with your kids, how much screen time. So that's on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. on LinkedIn. And then I'm doing parent to parent talk on my book. So it's 5 sessions with me over like probably I would say 8-week period of time. They get a copy of the book. They get 5 sessions with me, and they're part of our parenting community. I have a separate chat for them and separate resources for the parents that sign up for me. So that's happening starting this week.
Oh, that's awesome. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, sorry, so much was like going through my head, and I'm like
Yes,
trying
I
to
know.
unpack it all,
That's
like
okay.
it's just, as a parent, like, so I'm a parent also, both my kids are neurodiverse. And it's challenging, like doing that balance and taking care of yourself. And I love that you say that it's the supporting the parents, because that's the truth. Like we
Yeah.
need the support to know what's out there and that we're not alone, right?
Yeah. I didn't write this book because I was perfect.
Right.
I did not write this book as a perfect parent. When you read this book, you're going to read my successes and my failures in here as a parent. There's no brain research in here. It's practical advice and tips. And, I talk about how as a mom, like, my kids are very different, night and day. 2 daughters, night and day. They both needed me differently at different ages of their life. And you'll hear how Girl Scouts was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I couldn't do one more thing. I was trying to be all of this as a mom, and I couldn't do it. So to your balancing your work and your life, I talk a lot about that in here. And so that's why it's important for me to build this parenting community village, safe space for parents to be able to come in and say, we had a great day, or we had a really rough day yesterday, and then to have other parents be able to say, have you tried this? You could do this. I had the same, I had something different, and really just feeling that support that you're not alone, because sometimes you feel alone,
Yeah. And not feeling guilty when you can't do it all.
Right.
It's funny that you say Girl Scouts, because I am. So a friend of mine, our kids met when they were in kindergarten. during COVID. And so the two of us started a Girl Scout troop. Our girls are just finishing up 4th grade. So
Yeah.
and I'm also cookie mom. So we're co-troop leaders and cookie mom. But I love it. Like, I'm an older mom, and all I ever wanted was to be that mom that could be involved and do everything, which I can't do because I run a law firm and you can't do both.
Right.
But I can find what works. We're like a very chill troop. Cookies is like a big thing for us, but we also earn the badges and stuff like that. But like, that works for me because that's my time to connect with my daughters
Right.
and our girl power time.
Yeah. Well, and it wasn't Girl Scouts. It was just the one more thing. And
Yeah.
and they were already going to religion class one night a week. I was taking one class working on my master's one night a week. They already had gymnastics another night of the week. And then, Friday night, everybody's exhausted. Saturday, you're doing laundry. And I mean, that's when you actually had to go to the grocery store, right? There was no Instacart, 20 years ago. So I'm schlepping 2 kids and I'm going to the store and I'm going to Walmart and I'm getting, the house clean. And I was like, I couldn't do one, and doing my homework and grading papers as a teacher. Like I couldn't do one more event, one more thing. And I had her pick, like, which one do you want? Because I can't do all this. And I felt so guilty as a mom. Like,
Yep.
I felt like I had crushed her hopes and dreams. I felt terrible. And you know what? She didn't care. And I talk about this in here. She just wanted to sell cookies.
Yeah.
Thought that was cool, and she
Yes.
was like, it's okay. And it was never, she was fine. She was provided for with a lot of other opportunities.
Right. And I love that you say that, because I'm thinking about that you said that you could not do one more thing. With my daughter, like, she has a lot going on and she's doing a lot. And she has said to me, Mom, I can't do it all.
Yes.
I need downtime. And her physical therapist was like, she's giving you information. I'm like, what am I supposed to not do? You know what I mean? Like, she has this, like, religion school is not an option really, physical therapy. She has other therapy.
Right.
Like, how do I cut out? And but then I had to take that step back and say, what's most important here? Because if she's getting that stressed that it's too much, then all that other stuff isn't going to matter, because she's going to get to a point that she can't do any of it.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
so listening to our kids of what they need, because they, have it. Like, we all, for whatever reason, our crazy society thinks like, oh, if you're busy, it's a good thing.
Yes.
Ask anybody, how are you doing? Oh, so busy. Oh, so busy. Oh, so busy.
Yeah.
It's like,
so we have to learn how to stop doing that.
Exactly.
So, and I would love to invite you and anyone that's listening. So October 4th and 5th, I'm hosting what's called the Work-Life Balance Summit. It's the Professional Work-Life Balance Summit. It's virtual. And I'm not presenting in it. I might present one thing, but I have 26 presenters that are presenting on work-life balance, because again, I put this in my book too. Like, you have to find your balance. When do you say that's enough or I need more? And, we could talk about this. This could be a whole show, Frances, like just talking about it as a mom. How do you balance and take care of yourself? You're working, you're raising children, you're managing a household, the finances, whatever the case may be. Like, it's so much, so it's really important to speak to that.
Yeah. And one of the things I know I've learned is that I need to take that step back and prioritize, and what is really important and what matters in the long run. And so, it's funny because it's after 5:00 here, because we're not doing this one live, we're recording, but I'm usually like 5 to 8 is family time.
Good. Yeah.
Monday through Friday. Friday, definitely always. But like Monday through Friday, I try to do that as like, this is family time, and protect it. I might go back to work at 8 or whatever that is. But for me, I don't want, I want that family time. I love it. We all have dinner together every single night. I hear for other families, it doesn't work, but for us, it does. We try to have game night once a week, and just like have that fun interacting. Because I think it's important for the kids to see that as well, that they're important.
Absolutely. How old are your kids?
My kids are 7 and 10.
Oh, they're at a fun age. That is such a fun age of kids. For sure. I do talk about dinner time in my book as well. That's one of my chapters, dinner time, because what you're doing is so important. And I talk about it, and I've talked about it in other circles. It doesn't mean that you have to be like Susie Homemaker and cook a pot roast and all of these things. You could
Yes.
be bringing home, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, pizza,
Yep.
and we're together at the table, devices are away, and we're communicating with one another. And it could be that. I mean, we got so busy when my kids were teens, one in club, one in competitive dance, one in club ball, softball. And my husband was starting to run his own business, and I was working on my doctorate. I mean, there was so much. We literally, Thursday nights, we met at the Mexican restaurant at 8 p.m. for dinner. But that's
what worked, right?
we did. We made it work. We knew we wanted to come together. And I think we did that for 2 years. We were regulars on Thursday nights at the Mexican restaurant.
That's awesome.
It was quick. It was easy. It was inexpensive.
Good.
And it worked for our family. You have to find that way. That's so cool that you do that. I'm glad. I'm glad that you're protecting some time for your family.
That's important. And the other thing that I started doing this year is protecting my vacation time as well.
Good.
Last summer I unplugged for 12 days. I didn't even bring my computer.
Good for you.
It was amazing. I had never done that before. I'm out. My staff knew in an emergency if they had to reach me, but you know what? What emergency? What can't wait?
Right.
Because guess what? They figured it out. That's the thing. When, oh shoot, I can't call Frances and ask her what do I do? And they figure it out. It makes them more independent, which is the same for our kids.
And your family loved that time with you,
all about them. Yeah.
That's never going to happen. That time will never happen again.
Exactly. And that's what I'm hoping to do when I go my next vacation next week. I'm hoping I plan to do it. But at least what I have done before is said 1 hour a day I can set aside just to check my email if there's anything really urgent or some things like that if I need to. But it making the priority I find is the most important, because if not, when I'm with the kids, I feel guilty I'm not doing stuff for work. When I'm at work, I feel guilty I'm not with the kids. And if we're okay, this is the kids' time, this is the work time, it works, right?
It does. I mean, my kids are 24 and 26, and I still put parameters around that. When we're going to have family time, it's phones away. And usually the calendars come out actually, so that we can plan our family weekends now that they're moved out of the house. So it's a little different. My one friend said, you should write a parenting book on adult children. I was like, I'm not ready to do that yet, but you do still have to, you have those moments, and it's really important that you do that. And even when they come in or when they were littler, telling them, because sometimes you do have to work. I'd have to grade papers, on Sunday, and I would say, I'm going to work on this from here to here. And, that's when, they would do their thing. And then you put everything away. Like you said, you got to kind of give it its space and time, and then give them their space and time.
Right. Exactly. It's so important. And it's I think for the kids, that they know it's showing them and teaching them as well.
Yes.
And that's our kids learn so much more from modeling and pick up so much more. I mean, my kids, all of a sudden something will come out of their mouth and I'm like, oh, I should probably stop saying that so much, or, things like that. My older one, I want to say she was 2-ish or something, but one of her first phrases was "dude, seriously." That's what I drive. I cleaned up my language a lot. Anybody that knows me, but it was she'd be like, "Dude, seriously."
Yeah, I know.
And it's that's when the bells go off of oh yeah, when she gets mad at this or that, it's okay, because that's what I do, and so now I need to readjust how I'm doing things to help her adjust, but also be real, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
None of us are perfect. I make mistakes. I'll scream my head off. I will take away everything and lose it. And then 10 minutes later go, what the heck did I just do?
Right.
But here's what I do. I go back to my child and I say, hey, mommy made a mistake. Mommy got angry. Mommy blew up. this probably wasn't the best punishment. So I think we're going
Yeah.
to give that back. But this is the, but let's discuss what we think we need to do because of that action.
The conversation is so huge, right? And we're learning as parents, and that's something that's so important. We didn't get a training necessarily on how to be a parent. So we learned from our prior families, maybe you had a good parent, maybe you didn't, maybe you had a parent. Maybe your grandparents or aunts, uncles raised you. Where were you raised? Were you raised in a village? Were you raised by lots of people? There's around the world, as I've talked about parenting, there's so many parenting styles. So how did you learn your parenting, and where did you take it from, and what's working and what's not working? And that's really what this is about. The course with me and this book is really you reflecting and thinking about what's working for me and this child, and then what's working for this child, what's working for this child, because they're all different. And I think the communication, though, is that foundation, cornerstone, whatever you want to call it, because explaining why did I get upset, or why did this make me so upset, right? As a parent, why did I get to this level, and identifying it. Well, maybe I'm exhausted.
Yep.
Just like my oldest daughter, whenever she was 2 years old and she was tired, she cleared the coffee table. I mean, everything on it was off. And that's when we went, time for bed. She's hit her limit, right? Yep. So when his mom hit her limit, and what was it? Was it the behavior? Was it the precursor to the behavior?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's my younger one, when she gets really whiny and stuff, I'm like, oh, she's hungry. Let me get a granola bar, And that's the thing, is to learn your child, and what their needs and how to meet their needs while protecting our own, because that's
absolutely
so important.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what I know, was there a summit or is there a summit coming up?
So I have two big summits a year. I have the Work-Life Balance Summit in October. It's October 4th and 5th. We have presenters on like financial organization, entrepreneurship, like social media, balancing that in your life, family dynamics, health and fitness, those types of different pieces for that. And it is 2 days. Right now, there's early bird specials. They're on my website. And then the virtual wellness experience is March. And we already have the dates for that. It's on my website as well. Right now, early bird tickets for both of them are $75 for 2 days, which is really inexpensive.
Wow.
The price goes up. I know. I'm telling you, it's a good deal. Yeah. So, so grab those tickets while you can get them now, because the price does go up. But we do have 26 presenters from around the world. We had 26 in the fall, or in March, and then we'll have 26 again in October. We have 19 of them secured right now as of today. And then we have a few more applications coming in now. So it's really important to me. Like, this type of work is as important with adults as it is to our children. I recommend even to these summits, you could have a 16-year-old child or older come with you as a parent to listen to some of the things in here. I think it would be good. My 24-year-old daughter, my two daughters are part of my Creative Living Ideas team, and they've both helped with both of them, either presenting, driving chats, making sure everyone has what they need in the sessions. And my 24-year-old, when she watched the first one last October, she was like, I can't believe these days are over. Like, this was incredible information. Just, it's so important for us to learn these things.
Right. Because the parent journey is hard. I remember one of my support groups, somebody was saying, what he said is like, first I did my individual therapy, and then we were able to do the family therapy and find ways to communicate. So what are some tips, I guess, like some little nuggets, tips for parents that, somebody that might be listening, of like one or two little things that they could change right now that will make a difference in how raising their child will be, your child will be more well-adjusted?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think there's a few tips that I have. I have a friend who uses this term, phones down, eyes up. And so be conscious and take some time to put your devices away and to look at your child and have a conversation with them just in general. Okay, that's the first step. The second thing that I want parents to do is to take a moment, and every day, if they could, once a week would be great, to just tell their child, what do they like about them? Like, I love you so much today because you're special to me. You make me laugh. You have a kind heart. You're generous. You're so helpful. Hearing those things are very impactful for children. And then I want you to take time to tell your kids you love them and why you love them. And those are things that are just foundational, really important to stop and to just say. I told this story a while ago. I'm 54 years old. And about 3 months ago, my mom and I were just chit-chatting on the phone, talk to my mom every day. And she said, can I stop you from your story? And I said, yes. And she said, can I just tell you how much I love you and how grateful I am that you're my daughter and that God gave you to me? I'm so lucky. I love you. Okay, go ahead. And that was, and I thought about that for about 2 weeks. Every day it would pop into my head thinking, that was so nice. Like, I already knew she loved me,
Right. But you can't hear it enough.
But it was so
Right?
nice to just I'm 54. I've had a very good relationship with my mom. So imagine parents who are struggling with some of their kids, or we have children, like you said, who have diagnoses that are challenging for the kids, the caregivers, the parents, whomever, and for them to know that they're still just loved.
Yeah. I'm 54 also, by the way. When I say older parent, I mean really older parent.
It's your time.
Exactly. You know what? It's the way life went. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
all good. But and I'm trying to remember where I heard it, but it was years and years ago that somebody said to me that the things you say to your child now becomes their inner voice later.
Mm-hmm.
And it really struck home.
Yeah.
Because I think about things that I just go back to myself personally and things that were said to me as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily only the parents, but teachers, friends, whatever. I mean, everybody if you know my story, I grew up thinking I wasn't smart enough to go to law school.
Right.
Because that's what I had heard, because
Yes.
I fit in that box of what the education system said was smart.
Yes.
And as you know, we grew up in an era that special ed wasn't really a thing for those of us with, I mean, I don't have a diagnosis, but I probably would have back then.
Me too, probably, I'm sure.
But like, it really hit home because I'm like, I don't want my child to be like that. Like, I don't want my child growing up thinking she's not smart. Because like one of the jokes I have is I can't spell. And my oldest daughter came home and she had a not great grade on her spelling test. And she's like, I just can't do better. I'm like, honey, mommy can't spell and daddy can't spell. There's no way. I'm like, it is.
That's why we have, Grammarly and Google and AI.
Exactly.
You'll be fine, kid. Just get through this year.
Exactly. Like I understand why you have to learn to spell and stuff, but seriously, spelling tests every week?
Yes.
It's like, for what? Because they're not even, I mean, like, I get it, but just, it's so frustrating, because that's the thing, is you grow up thinking, well, I can't spell, so I must not be smart because everybody else is spelling and doing better.
Exactly.
So.
And I would have to say, like, so going back to that, being your inner child, the words that are said to us, I don't know that I started out as a mom knowing those things to say or to spend time saying those to my kids until I had been an educator for a while and I had learned from my peers. I mean, I'm around a lot of people who have degrees and varying courses they've took or books they've read to share information, as well as a lot of females that are moms, right? So as I become a mom, I start learning all of these things. As an educator, I start learning all of these things. And you go into administration and you go to more trainings and you get more of your education and, your master's and your doctorate, specialist, all those things, and then you learn so much. And so once probably my kids were probably 10, 12, a little older, maybe, I really learned that I needed to say more of those positive things on a regular basis to my kids, to tell them, the good things, instead of coming in the door and being like, really, you didn't vacuum today? Like, is that the first thing I should say to them when I come in the door? But
Yeah,
I've been guilty of doing that, right? Like, I'm at work all day and you didn't vacuum or unload the dishwasher. You had two things to do. You've been home all summer, right? I mean, we've all said that. So
and my thing is the kids leave their book bags and don't take their lunch boxes out of their book bags. Like, seriously, right? If you want me to pack lunch tomorrow, you got to take the lunch bags out now.
Right. Well, and my own therapy that I went to too. So, with all that experience, I want to help guide other parents for that too. I remember talking to my therapist and feeling very stressed. My mom was in 2008 going through chemotherapy. She was sick. We'd never had anybody in our family have a cancer diagnosis. It was traumatic, tragic. I'm raising my kids. My husband loses his job. Like 2008 was a disaster. And I started going to therapy probably 2010. Maybe somewhere in between there. Anyhow, and I was very stressed. And she finally said, like, how can you make your morning easier? And I was like, I can't. Like, we got to get out of the house at 7:30. And she's like, do you have to make your kids breakfast? Now, granted, was I really making a breakfast? I was probably pouring them a bowl of cereal. It wasn't like I was whipping up homemade biscuits or something.
That's more than I do. They grab a smoothie out the door.
And that's what she said. She said, they can buy them what they want. They can go make it. And I said, but what if they don't eat? And she's like, and what if they don't eat?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a bad mom. Why? Why would you know what I mean? But those are the things that we have to process through as a parent. And so I want to help build this village to help parents to understand and, go through some of those things,
Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if you feed your kids McDonald's every night, like, that's what you need to do to get through the day. Again, like, going back to what's most important, right? Your mental health, your physical health, your child's mental health, your child's physical health, and your family.
Yes.
And if what you need to do is order in or do the drive-through, like, no judgment, no nothing.
Meet at the Mexican restaurant on Thursdays.
Right. Exactly. Like, that's what you need to do to get through but focusing on what really matters. Like, who cares what everybody else thinks? Who cares what everybody else is doing? That's them. That's what works for their family. This is me, and this is what works for my family.
Right. Exactly.
And stop comparing, right? Stop comparing yourself as a mom to other caregivers of like, oh, wow, they do this and they do that. So what? You do this and that, differently. And
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. This has been so great. I think I'm trying to remember. I think I've read your book, but now I'm like, oh, I got to go back and read it again with all my spare time, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It sounds like the type of book that you could just like pick up and read a chapter when you need it, and then put it away, and then come back.
It's best like that.
Yeah, that you don't have to just read it like front to back.
No.
So it's a good book. So, and then, of course, obviously, those links will all be in the show notes. This has been so awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wealth of information with all of our listeners.
Yeah. You're welcome. It's been fun. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to Stress-Free IEP with your host, Frances Shefter. Remember, you do not need to do it all alone. You can reach Frances through ShefterLaw.com, where prior episodes are also posted. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing the show with others through YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.